What's going on, hockey fans? This is episode 75 of the Clappercast, and shout out to us making 2K listens. That's awesome. I'm Burke, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Sean. Sean, what's going on today?
You know, this has been quite an exciting return to the hockey season for us here. We've had some big stories, some exciting games, teams off to great starts. And, why don't we jump right into kind of the blockbuster news of the week, the huge trade between the Winnipeg Jets and Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, definitely a blockbuster, two top draft picks, same draft year, number 2 and 3 behind Austin Matthews, getting swapped for each other, and also Jack Roslovic and a third-round pick from 2022 also exchanging hands. So, both players kind of mentioned that they wanted out of those areas.
All three players, actually. Roslovic wasn't going to sign either. He was holding out.
True. Yeah, he's actually in Ohio, or was in Ohio by the time of the trade.
So he's a Columbus kid, so it's his hometown team he got traded to there. So he signed immediately as part of the trade.
Yeah, so definitely kind of a weird situation with all of the guys involved wanting a change of scenery.
I wonder if that third-round pick was going to sign in Columbus.
Yeah, probably not. Probably rumored to want out and want to be on a bigger stage.
Clashing with Torts.
So what are your initial thoughts on this trade, Sean? What's your gut take?
I see it as making the best out of a shitty situation on all terms, like all facets of everything. Like, Laine didn't want to stay in Winnipeg long-term. He was clashing with... It sounds like he was clashing with Wheeler, Scheifele, and Paul Maurice. Roslovic had been holding out. He wasn't even playing. Dubois very clearly wanted out of Columbus, and all of these pieces are now just switching hands. It's kind of a weird one going the other way, because kind of Pierre-Luc Dubois wants to be in a bigger role. He wants to be in a bigger market, so he goes to Winnipeg, which it's like the Columbus of Canada. And now he's going to be behind Mark Scheifele. So that's kind of an odd one. And, I mean, Patrik Laine going to Columbus, I don't think he's exactly the type of player that's going to fit in with John Tortorella at all. And Laine's also only signed for this season, so I see that as like a rental. Jack Roslovic is probably going to stay in Columbus. I think he'll fit in great with that team, that system. And, sounds like he's going to be happy playing for his hometown team. He's the right type of player for Columbus, so he'll be a good fit there.
So do you see there being a clear winner in this trade?
A clear winner? I mean, I'll probably say Winnipeg is getting probably the better player for a longer term. Because I don't know if Laine is going to stay there. I don't know if he's going to fit in with Columbus, but Winnipeg's going to get 2 years of Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is, he's pretty highly touted. He's still a fantastic hockey player, and he's great on both sides of the puck, which is something that's an improvement over Patrik Laine. So, they probably get the better player out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that my initial thought was, wow, that's a lot for Pierre-Luc Dubois. But when you break it down and look at Laine's only got a year, and they were probably going to lose him anyway, and now they get an amazing player back for not only this season, but next season at the minimum. It starts to make more sense. I know online there's a lot of Jets fans who were upset and, thinking that Cheveldayoff really got fleeced. But
I can see it, because Patrik Laine was kind of a fan favorite in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
He kind of had a pretty strong fan base. The fans all kind of loved him. So I can see them, I won't say overvaluing him, but being a bit more attached and kind of being a bit more upset when he gets traded away.
Yeah, I think it was an emotional reaction to that, because when he only had this season, he was pretty much gone. I mean, I don't think he had UFA rights, but he probably would have done the same thing as Roslovic if he really wanted out, or Trouba. So it's just kind of interesting that both of these markets have players that repeatedly won out. I mean, Columbus more so than Winnipeg, I guess. But yeah, I think Winnipeg is better off as a team right now. They get a number 2 center who's really a number 1 center, and it'll really add to the depth of that team. Now Stastny doesn't have to act as a number 2 center. Maybe he can move to the wing and play with Ehlers and Pierre-Luc Dubois. And like you said, Sean, I don't think that Laine is going to really fit into the Tortorella game. I mean, we've had Atkinson get a lot of goals, and obviously Panarin did really well offensively there. But, as a team, I think that they're more that 200-foot game, and Laine is not that type of player. So, maybe he'll add something that they're missing, or maybe he will really not fit in there. But I think Pierre-Luc Dubois will just be able to slide in and make the Jets better right away.
Yeah, I feel like his size, his play style, they have, a guy like Blake Wheeler who's also a big engaged forward. So Pierre-Luc Dubois can probably fit in and fill a similar role to that, right? He's also a big engaged forward who's going to be great on both sides of the puck. He'll probably get some penalty killing time. That'll be great. He's going to get a bigger role with more ice time, so he'll probably be happier.
Yeah, and you see, in playoffs, teams that have that 1-2 punch of first and second center do really well. The Penguins have Crosby, Malkin. Capitals had Kuznetsov, Backstrom. So it's one of those things that's really sought after, is to have those 2 amazing centers that can switch between line mates and move up and down and kind of play any part of the game. And I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois will really make that team better. And his father works for their AHL team. And so, he's kind of got some family reasons to stay there. And so even if he does, he might re-sign. I think the chances of him re-signing there are probably higher than Laine's at this point. Without either playing a game for each franchise, I would say Dubois is more likely to stay than Laine would. I think Laine would be looking at teams like, I don't know, the Rangers, or go down and play with his friend Barkov in Florida, or something like that. A more offensive team than the Torts system. But maybe he'll be just what they need. I don't know.
That's the thing. If he's going to get exceptions process, that type of thing, because I can't see Patrick Laine being the physical, back-checking, shot-blocking forward that's going to fit in with what John Tortorella usually does. But if he gets kind of the freedom to be his player, then Patrick Laine is going to be an excellent weapon on that power play. Give them a more legit offensive threat to help, bolster that top 6, kind of give them some chance to score a bit more regularly.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how he's going to fit in there. I think, like I was saying, Dubois seems like a more natural fit. He's a centerman. They'll kind of make the line adjust to him. But for Laine and Columbus, who's he going to play? Who's his center going to be? Who's his line mate going to be? He wanted a bigger role on a team. Well, he's got it, but who's he going to play with? He had those rumors of he wanted to play with a more skilled center, but who's that on Columbus?
Exactly.
So, I don't know.
Going back to something you said earlier about Dubois having family, his dad coaches the Jets AHL team, I believe. That was something initially when the trade happened. I didn't think that Winnipeg would be an ideal destination for him because, like we had been talking about, Dubois kind of seemed to want a bigger role on a bigger market team. So he goes to Winnipeg, a smaller market Canadian team, and he's going to be a 1B center with Scheifele. But if he's got the family ties in that organization already, then there's, I guess, probably a bigger chance he'll stay long-term with the team, or at least, be more inclined to do so in the future, which kind of leans a little bit more in Winnipeg's favor as well moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Winnipeg could be I don't know if it's really a bigger market than Columbus, but it's in Canada. And so, maybe he's a guy that just wanted to get back into Canada, which is understandable. considering everything that's going on in the States. And, there's all these sorts of rumors and stuff going on about, the political leanings of his teammates and everything. And, he was adamant of saying it wasn't his teammates and it wasn't Tortorella and blah, 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 and stuff that he was thinking about for a long time. But, maybe it is just a guy who wants to be back in Canada. Who knows? I don't know if we'll ever quite know the full story here, but
yeah,
whatever.
It sounds like what Dubois said in some interviews and stuff afterwards is he kind of got to a point where he was getting to that contract negotiation stage and thinking about the long term for once, and he was kind of like, wait, is this really where I want to commit or what I want to commit to? And that's kind of what led the motivation wanting to look elsewhere is staying in Columbus. Is that kind of it? And just that type of motivation and commitment.
Yeah, he had an interview with Ron McLean where Ron was asking him quite bluntly about why do you want to leave and blah, blah, blah. And in one of his answers, Dubois said, there's Luc Dubois, the hockey player, and there's Pierre-Luc Dubois, the human. And so, I think that kind of gave us a little bit of insight as to, he just wasn't happy there. And, I'm sure a lot of people can attest to being in a job or a position that you just don't really like. And that maybe if you're doing the same job somewhere else, it might be better. And so, it's time to move on. And I think he's getting a lot of shit on the way he, kind of gave up effort-wise. But, it did expedite the process and he wanted out. And so it kind of showed that, yeah, move me now. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. And maybe he could have put a little bit more effort in, but he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. He's on a new team. He's got new teammates. As long as he puts effort in now and with his new team, I'm sure Winnipeg won't mind too much.
No, not at all. I mean, he's done that, once now where he kind of checks out and seems to visibly give up anyways. It's not exactly a situation he's going to be able to reuse. So, it's kind of, I imagine there's a bit of a shorter leash in that type of thing, knowing kind of how he's handled that situation in the past and moving forward into his new situation here, that he's not going to be able to get away with that again because he's going to be under a bit of a closer microscope, I imagine.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how both guys play. I think we'll probably see Laine sooner than Pierre-Luc Dubois based on the quarantine rules. Going into the U.S., I think, is shorter than coming back into Canada. But I know Cheveldayoff is appealing to the federal government for a reduced amount of time for him because he's coming from a, kind of an already self-isolated environment. And so I think that kind of makes sense. But Laine is day-to-day right now with an injury, and so who knows when they'll both get into the lineup. But I'm really looking forward to that, seeing them play on their new teams. But
it'll be interesting for Laine, like we had been just talking about, who's he going to play with, what's he going to do with his line mates, with his team situation. But, he kind of wanted to be a bigger piece of the team, and now he's got it. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that, if he kind of takes charge a bit more offensively and starts driving the play a lot more. That's going to be one of the things I'll be interested in tuning into some Columbus games in the first couple of weeks of Laine's tenure there.
So maybe let's move on to a team that had a late start and had a lot of COVID players. So we'll move on to the Dallas Stars. So they came out of the gate just absolutely flying against the Nashville Predators, and they've started their season 2-0, and they've looked really good. And Sean, I was texting you during the game yesterday, their second game, that I couldn't tell if the Stars power play was that good or if the Nashville Predators penalty kill just was that bad. And I think it's a bit of both.
Honestly, yeah. Going off of the trend in the first game and just kind of watching the teams play, I think the Stars power play was doing really well, but I think the Predators are just kind of a bit, nonchalant about the whole thing right now.
Yeah, and it was weird because UC Saros, who played both games for Nashville, has usually been money against the Dallas Stars, and Stars have really struggled to score against him. He had I think it was like 180-minute shutout streak or something like that against them, dating back to last season. And even in the exhibition games in the bubble, he just played super well against them. And so it was kind of surprising to see Dallas just explode offensively. But, I guess that's what happens when you sit out and have to think, and you get some more time to maybe exploit how the other teams are playing. But they started that first game with 7-0.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, Seguin's still out. Ben got hurt partway into the game, so they're missing two of their top players, and they still, rally around and get 7 goals and a shutout too. Like, that's pretty impressive for a debut.
And so in those two games, the Dallas Stars power play is at 66% effective. So they are, I believe, top power play in the league right now. Obviously a small sample size, and
sustainable.
They will
Always
not
sustainable.
stay quite that high, but it's pretty amazing to see that. And then their penalty kill was 89%, and so they were dominant on all special teams. But I should note here that Nashville's power play is at 10% effective, so they've scored, I think, twice, or maybe just once, I think, on their power play, and they've let up a shorthanded goal against Dallas from Esa Lindell, who absolutely walked Roman Josi, which was funny to see. And Nashville's penalty kill, I think, is the worst in the league right now. Second to worst. It's at 55%. So they're just, like you said, it is a little bit of both. Nashville's just really struggling to get anything going, and Dallas took advantage of that.
Yeah, we saw the start of this through last season with Nashville kind of falling apart a little bit. We talked about like their Jofa line was struggling big time through the year. They all underperformed, and this was going to be a big turning point for the franchise, for the team, to kind of see if they're going to rebound and continue being competitive, or if they're going to struggle a bit. And early impressions are not that great for the Predators.
Yeah, that Jofa line was not very good. They got split up in game 2. It's interesting for the Stars because that game 2 was the first time in 8 years that they haven't had at least one of Jamie Benn or Tyler Seguin in the lineup, and they found a way to score still and to win that game. We mentioned that the Jofa line has struggled. Well, that Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and Alexander Radulov trio has also really struggled the past couple years. But we've seen kind of the emergence of a new kind of fast, dynamic forwards coming out of Dallas, where you got like Rupe Hintz, Denis Gurianov. We got Joel Kiviranta, the playoff god, who also had a good game 1. Scoring has always kind of been their weakness, but not out of the gate this season. I don't think anyone expected Joe Pavelski to get 7 points in his first 2 games.
That's that is crazy for that type of start for him. So
yeah, he got the 3rd star of the week in just 2 games, but it's absolutely insane. 3 goals, 4 assists.
Yeah, this is a really good. Dallas missed a whole bunch of time at the beginning of the year with all their games being postponed. So for them to come out of the gate, win a couple of games quickly, and put themselves right back in the mix. I mean, what are they sitting 4th, tied for 4th in the division with just those 2 games played. So it's really helpful because then they're not having to play catch up all year. They're already sitting kind of in a comfortable spot.
Yeah, it's very, very important, I think, to have that good start. And Anton Hudobin looked really good too. I think that might have been the first time in his career where he started opening night and got the shutout. in game 1 and then played in game 2 and was really good. He notably absolutely robbed Victor Arvidsson with 30 seconds left or something to keep the game, keep the Stars up by 1. And he looked really good. They came out really strong. So props to the Stars for coming out strong. And then there's another team that I know you're happy that they've come out strong because it allowed you to whoop my ass in fantasy.
Oh yes, yeah. The Montreal Canadiens. They've propelled me in both of my fantasy teams. They had a really high activity week. A lot of their players were just overperforming, putting up a lot of stats in all the categories. So it was good. Yeah,
and I think one team in particular is not so happy about Montreal doing so well, and that is the Vancouver Canucks. Because most of their success came at their expense. And to add insult to injury, Tyler Toffoli, the guy who, got away from Vancouver, absolutely tore it up against them. I don't have the stats exactly on how many points he got, but I know he got one hat trick, right? And then another multi-point night, and then got an assist in the last game. So just tore it up. And so the Canucks have had to face Markstrom, who got a shutout against them, and then another win. And then they faced Tyler Toffoli, who fucking annihilated them. And so it's been a rough start facing their former teammates.
Yeah, those 3 games against Vancouver, Toffoli had a hat trick, 2 goals and an assist, and then an assist. So 7 points in 3 games. And like you said, Markstrom, another shutout against them. It's really telling. I mean, I remember us kind of ripping the Canucks over the summer or over the offseason because of letting all of these guys go or not being able to find the money to keep them all. And then immediately all of these guys are on their revenge tours and take it out on the team. So it's kind of telling, kind of the talent they let walk away and kind of the downgrade the team's taken as Vancouver themselves are really struggling to adjust to everything.
Yeah, they haven't really looked very sharp, and I want to give Montreal props before I get into absolutely tearing apart the Canucks here, where they've Josh Anderson has looked really good. Nick Suzuki, I know because he's on your fantasy team, has had an amazing week. I think he's got like a 6-game point streak or something like that. And then their defense has looked really good. As a history guy, it really, really makes me happy that there's a pairing of Kulak and Romanov together. And so Romanov is the Russian, royal family that was, and the Kulaks are a class that Stalin eliminated. I don't want to get into all that, but
that's for a different
it just
podcast.
makes me laugh that there's yeah. It just makes me laugh that's a pairing. And Romanov's been really good. Sherratt's been good. They just look so strong, and I'm really glad that I put them, finishing second in the division. And I think that they might end up taking first because they've just looked.
Yeah, and the great thing about the Habs start is just how deep that lineup is shown to be, and we kind of talked about this too, that they don't exactly have the top star forwards, but they have like 3 really good 1B lines or 3 really good second lines, and they kind of show that where all of their top 12 forwards are ranging between 14 to 17 minutes, I think. Or I think it's the top 9 forwards at least are up in that range, which is a stark contrast to some of the other teams where they have their top forward line playing 23 minutes a night. So to have 3 forward lines getting all of, more even ice time in all situations, and even in the scoring sense, that every single player who has played a game has a point already. And all but 3 players have scored a goal.
Wow.
And, we're 6 games into the season, I think. 7 games in for them. 6 or 7. So they've already got that entire lineup contribution that is already producing. They're engaged. Like, the success of the team is going to level off. But to have that production already is insane.
I definitely remember us talking about that depth and just the ability to almost like roll lines and have faith in your at least top nine. And honestly, probably the fourth line too, because they've looked really good too. They've they're so dynamic and offensive, and they're so fast, and they're a big team too. At least with a few of the forwards are pretty physical. But they're just so speedy and so dangerous. And for a team like the Canucks, and some of the games, to be fair, they were missing some of their defense. They've had a few defensemen get hurt in one of the games, and so they're really not built to be able to defend against a team that has so many weapons like that. And the Canucks just weren't doing themselves any favors. I mean, they're giving up shorthanded goals and coughing the puck up when they don't need to.
What they have,
I think that just the forecheck.
Yeah, they had like 3 rookie defensemen playing in one of the games, and Quinn Hughes. So that's like four of their 6 defenders are in like their first season, basically, in terms of games played.
Yeah, and they you saw it. You really saw it, because that forecheck and the speed that the Montreal Canadiens come at them is just, causes those mistakes. It causes the defenseman to be under duress and to make dumb plays. And a guy like Quinn Hughes is someone who doesn't make a simple play. He rushes up the ice and loses it, or makes a bad pass. And Montreal really exposed that, just pressuring, and they've really come out of the gate flying, and it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch. I mean, I wasn't having fun being like, oh, God damn it, Suzuki got another point. Why does it have to be him? But it's been really fun to watch. And, unless you're a Canucks fan, I guess, then it's not so fun.
And the response by the Canucks fan base has been pretty quick and pretty aggressive. They're kind of, Jim Benning's head is already being called for. I mean, there hasn't been much flack on Elias Pettersson, but he's very obviously been struggling big time, and he's kind of been really... He's struggled to find any sort of footing and get going on the year, so there's been, the Canucks fan base isn't particularly happy with their performance and the moves, and calling for some changes.
Yeah. Also, props to my boy Markstrom, for just showing how valuable he was with a shutout right out of the bat.
Yeah.
The Canucks, we talked about it last season, they're a team that gave up a lot of high danger chances, and Markstrom was a guy that would bail them out nightly, stopping absolutely insane saves where he would just like stack the pads and do like a leg kick and, stop a 2-on-0 and all sorts of crazy stuff. And, Holtby and Demko have shown that they're not at that level. And it shows in the score sheet. And, I'm sure Markstrom feels really good about beating his old team, and the contract that he has is pretty nice. And so for now, Calgary is laughing about that, but, maybe in the later years of that, the Canucks will be okay with how things turn out. But for right now, that's definitely got a sting. And yeah, you mentioned Pettersson's struggling. He got a tip goal in the last game, but he's looked rusty, and he's making some questionable decisions out there with the puck. And hopefully he shakes off the rust or whatever is going on with him and turns it around, because he's a huge part of that team, and the Canucks really need every member of their top 6 to compete every night. Otherwise, they don't have a shot, because they need to outscore their opponent, because they don't have Markstrom anymore to keep the score down. So hopefully they figure it out. But, time's ticking, and it's a short season, so the longer you take to figure it out, the more work you got to do at the end of the season to make up games. And, with teams like Montreal and Toronto and Calgary and the Jets and even Ottawa, can't take forever to do that.
That was a very good call leaving Edmonton out of that description.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot about them. It wasn't intentional, but, I mean, maybe it was a Freudian slip, but...
It was a good call.
Edmonton's kind of in that same boat. Edmonton's kind of in that same boat, though. I mean, they had some lucky puck bounces that have won them a couple games. And, the Draisaitl had a sweet tying goal game-winning goal last night, right before overtime.
0.7 seconds left. That's the latest game-winning goal in Oilers history, I believe it was. So, that was a pretty exciting, emotional roller coaster of a last 7 minutes of a game. But, we'd like them to not give up 2 goals very quickly, while also taking a really dumb penalty with 5 minutes left in a tie game. That would be great.
Yeah, they have not looked super great. I mean, there's moments, but their power play has sucked. I mean, we were kind of going back and forth last night talking about, like, why do they keep trying to force this spread out? Like, you're doing the penalty killer's job for them.
They really are.
By keeping it on the outside and never making any dangerous passes or moving it fast. Or, you've seen them snap it around, and that's when they score, is when they snap it around and beat guys.
That game-winning goal last night was short, quick passes as they're moving around. It was McDavid, I think, driving to the goal line, sending it quickly up to Draisaitl, kind of in the mid-circle, who shot it right there. We were talking about them trying to get that low, strong side triangle going that Winnipeg and Vancouver both use on the power play, because that would kind of be a bit more conducive to success for the team based off of how they're built. But they're insistent on that, like, completely spread out all over the place, weird umbrella style that just puts the penalty killers directly in the passing lanes, and it's not working right now. Teams have figured it out.
Yeah, I think they gotta shake it up, change something, because they've got too many lethal options on their power play to not score. And Koskinen is working. He's just an absolute workhorse for them right now, and they got to get him a little bit more run support if they want to win some games. It's like, the guy's your only option, and he's working every night.
Yep. And
you guys aren't scoring. It's like, that's not a recipe for success. So I don't know. Maybe grip your stick a little looser, and not force that seam pass that they try and do, like, all the time.
Yeah, they need it's supporting the puck carrier. They've got the one guy kind of off doing his own thing, and the other 4 are just hanging around. And it's not too hard to stop anybody when you can get 3 defenders on the one guy with a puck and they can't go anywhere with it. They've got to try and support the puck carrier a bit more, and especially in the offensive zones, they can generate something rather than just trying that slingshot entry into the offensive zone and losing it.
Oh, slingshot. The worst thing to happen to hockey. I mean, yeah, you mentioned that goal that they got to win. Just some quick little passes, like one-touch passes and stuff. But you had, like, that Yamamoto goal where you just plant him in front.
Yeah.
Let McDavid get him the puck.
Exactly.
Like, he's good enough to get that pass there. Just let him beat a guy and get him the puck. Like, just go to the net.
Like, I joked about this last year, that the Oilers have spent so many years trying to find these big physical forwards to be like a net front presence to screen for deflections and tip in goals and everything. None of them really worked. And then we find Kyler Yamamoto, who's like 5'8", and he's the net front presence the Oilers have needed for years, because he's amazing at puck retrieval. He battles his way into position, and he just finds a way to get the puck in the net. He battles, and that's kind of exactly what they need in that position for McDavid and Draisaitl. Just throw the puck in the net and let Yamamoto grab it.
Yeah, he's finally the guy. Yeah, I'm sorry I left the Oilers out of my list there. I didn't mean to leave them out. They've still got a shot. They're not doing as bad, but I think it was just a Freudian slip that I failed to mention them. Just quickly here, I don't have a lot on this, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the New Jersey Devils for being 3rd in the East.
They're ahead. Hella impressive.
They're ahead of Boston, Philadelphia, the Islanders, Buffalo, and the Rangers. And so, we can maybe say that, okay, well, maybe we expected them to be better than Buffalo, or I don't know, but for them to be above Boston, Philly, the Islanders, and the Rangers, and even with a game in hand on Philly, not bad.
Yeah, it's a testament. They've had
Not bad.
They've had some pretty good offensive contributions from a lot of guys. I know Miles Wood started the year pretty well. Jack Hughes has had a really good start. I think he got 7 points already. But this is really kind of the popularization of Mackenzie Blackwood as a strong young goalie. He's missed the last couple of games. It's been Scott Wedgwood in net, who has also done exceptionally well for them as well. But Mackenzie Blackwood, he's getting a lot of recognition this year for his play, and a lot of people are kind of being like realizing that he's right up there with the young goalies like Hart. He's right in that same category of excellent young goalie who's going to make a really big name for himself in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just in the East here, another young goalie that's making a name for himself, Carter Hart. Philly has got to play better in front of that guy because he's playing well, and Philly is not. They've kind of struggled. I know it's early, but they should be doing better than where they're at, and it's not Hart's fault, which is funny because normally in Philly, it does land on the goaltender, but right now it's definitely not on him. So, just wanted to give props to some goalies there. And then kind of the last thing here on my notes, Sean, is the Capitals, my team, done goofed with some COVID protocols. Well, and I say the Capitals, but it's really the players, is the Russians on the team. So Alex Ovechkin, might have heard of him. Evgeny Kuznetsov, Dmitry Orlov, and Ilya Samsonov got put on the COVID list because they broke protocol. So they've missed one game so far. Then they might miss 3 more, which is absolutely brutal for that team, especially now that Tom Wilson is out with injury. Because they spent time in their hotel room together rather than in like the lounge area. So they're in their room. They're in Samsonov's room playing video games and watching sports and stuff. And then Samsonov tested positive for COVID. And so the Capitals got fined $100K for that. And they're now without some pretty important players to that team. And so I know my thoughts on this, but as I'm kind of biased and, I like the Capitals and I like Ovechkin, but what did you think about, I guess, the fine to the team and the fact that those players have to miss time?
I'm okay with all of it, and I think it sets a good precedent for the future, any future potential violations across the league, that the league isn't going to take, breaking these protocols lightly. I see it, all of the players know what they're getting into and what they were signing up for when they agreed to come and play the season. They know that included not spending, time in close quarters with teammates outside of hockey-related activities. The team is responsible for enforcing that, and I think they have like someone on the training staff who signs off regularly that all of these protocols are being followed and all that type of stuff. So I see it's okay for the team to face some punishment because somewhere along the line this was allowed to happen or not snuffed out. The players missing time is totally fair because they've gone and violated the protocols, and we see immediately Samsonov test positive. So they've all just been in a close hotel room with someone who's tested positive for COVID, and now that's totally fair for them to have to miss the 7 to 10 days or however long it is to get the negative tests to allow them to return to the lineup. So I see it as a completely fair situation. Punishment on both sides is fine, and it sets a good precedent for other teams around the league to kind of be aware of this and not take it lightly.
How shitty is that though for like Laviolette?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a hockey team trying to win games, it's a crap situation. But yeah, that one kind of falls on the players. Ultimately, falls on the players, and especially your team captain. Ovechkin breaking this willingly on his own like that. That's kind of a really bad a really bad look for these guys.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people, and myself included, who were originally like, okay, well, these guys practice together, they play together, they're in very close contact with no masks on. And originally I was kind of like, okay, well, they're spending time with their teammates, but I didn't know the specific rules for, being on the road, and, they have a dedicated space to hang out off ice, and they broke that by hanging out in the rooms. And I get it, because that's the whole point, is everyone needs to have their own space separate from anybody else that they can be in, to avoid contact with a positive case. And so once I kind of figured out, like, okay, well, they broke a rule, so I get that. It just took me some time to understand that, and I agree with it. I think they should be allowed to play again once they get negative tests, or 2 negative tests, or whatever it is, to get back. Yeah, it's definitely sets the team back. But they've managed to play pretty well without those guys. But obviously, that's a huge part of the team.
Yeah.
So,
you mentioned that kind of main counterpoint I kept seeing about, well, they're in close quarters on the ice and in the dressing room and all that with no masks on already. But they're kind of forgetting that it's not 0 or 100. Like, it's not completely black and white. That it's about limiting exposure and limiting the chances for, spreading viruses, not completely eliminating it. Because if you were to completely eliminate it, you wouldn't have the season at all. So it's about trying to cut it down as much as possible to reduce the amount of time spent as much as you possibly can, while still allowing a regular, hockey related activities to happen. And I saw someone else talking too about how, they might be in close quarters practicing or on the bench together, but they might not be right beside each other. You might have the defenders kind of doing their own thing in practice or in their own little drills, and the goalies are a bit off on their own as well, not necessarily around the forwards. So they might kind of have their own little isolated groups, more isolated than, say the forward, or they might have their own little groups apart from the team that don't intermingle as closely as, they do within those groups. So you have Samsonov, part of the little goalie group, who is now close contact with, defensemen and forwards to kind of spread it around the rest of the team as well. So that's kind of the limiting the exposure off of the ice as well, as much as possible.
I think the goalies are supposed to stay, like, if they contact each other, they have to be in masks. I don't know. I don't know the exact rules, but because it's like that situation in the NFL where, like, all of the quarterbacks on the Denver Broncos were unable to play, and they had to put in, like, a guy who played quarterback in, like, high school or something, because if all your goalies are hanging out together and then one of them tests positive, it's like, okay, well, what do you do, right?
Exactly.
But I know, like, the Russians on that team are all really close friends, and they were all hanging out together during, like, the bubble. And so I don't know. I think it probably lands on both the team and the players. And so I agree with both. I wouldn't even say punishments. It's just like
enforcing of the rule.
They're living with their decision because, you were exposed to someone who had COVID, and this is why we have this procedure in place.
Yeah.
And so they're not really being punished. It's just kind of like, this is the reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you broke the protocol, and so now you're on the COVID list. But yeah, it's like the players need to know the rules, and the team needs to let them know what the rules are and to enforce them. And so, Ovechkin probably makes, like, a vastly more amount of money and has more say about what goes on in the Capitals than, like, some, like, COVID safety guy. But, you gotta enforce that rule so that they can, keep their most important player on the ice. But yeah, I just hope that they can get back in and don't have to miss 4 games total. It's just, whenever they're all safe, that they can get back in. And, I'd be totally okay with, like, things like fines and stuff, but I don't think that, to the players, but, I don't think that would fly with the CBA. So
no.
anyway,
Well, and the other
yeah,
thing too is they
Capitals
have to
suck.
make sure it's been long enough to make sure that they will test negative regularly. That like you can still, if you're not like very far into the infection process, you're not going to test positive because you don't have enough of the virus present to bring that result. So they have to make sure it's a long enough period of time before they're in contact with people again.
It's not ideal for them, but hopefully no other teams will have similar situations, because that's the world we live in right now, and that's part of the deal for having a season right now is not being in the room with the boys playing video games together. Do that in the lounge.
Do that online. They have that capability now. Throw on a headset and play online.
Yeah, so kind of a learning experience for the team and for the the rest of the league to realize that this is important and follow the rules.
So that wraps things up for this time here on Clappercast. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to our show on any podcast platform, and you can spread around the good word of Clappercast. To keep up to date with the latest content, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next time with more hockey talk.